We do not have a mayor or a mayor pro tem available to this meeting, and I would assume that somebody's going to make a motion on the floor to nominate a mayor pro tem.
I would make a motion to have Beck Ashby, Councilmember Ashby, tonight take the place of the mayor and the mayor pro tem.
I second that.
All in favor? Discussion. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
You don't have to move.
Okay.
I'm going to go get the cow.
Oh, do. And Mayor pro tem, may I approach the bench? Okay.
7?
No.
It being 7 o'clock, we will call the September 13th Port Orchard City Council meeting to order. And if you would all rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Do we have, our first agenda item is approval of the agenda.
I'd like to make a motion to approve tonight's agenda as presented.
Second.
Any discussion on that? If not, the motion before us is to approve the agenda as presented. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
If there's any opposed, say no. Thank you. And now we're to citizens' comments, and I would remind everyone that we have 2 citizen comments periods during our council meetings. The first one at the front of the meeting is for items that are listed on our agenda. Regular other comments for non-agenda items would be at the end of our agenda. And we ask citizens to limit your comments to 3 minutes. And no one had signed up for citizen comments this evening, but we would open it up to anyone who wanted to speak on an agenda item.
That's for the public hearing.
Yeah, and not for the, no, I realize that.
Business item 7B, ordinance establishes complete streets. I see in the verbiage that it's to help secure grant funding. And I would hope that before we put an ordinance in place that we look and make sure that we're not going to be looking at how we're going to finance transit lanes for a part-time transit system that we have, which are part of the complete streets. I just want to make sure that we're not looking down the street at how we're going to either pay back millions of dollars or bond a few more $1 million. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would wish to comment on, for citizens' comments? Seeing none, we will move on to the consent agenda.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda as
Second it.
submitted.
Second that too.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the consent agenda? Seeing none, we will be voting on accepting the consent agenda as presented. All those in favor say aye.
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 If there's any opposed, say no. So our fifth item is a presentation, and we have no presentations listed or scheduled for this evening. So we will move on to our public hearing. And we have a public hearing on an animal variance. And I believe that is, let me get there.
6A.
Yeah, I'm getting there. I'm not that far. It's Brandy. Okay.
All right, good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and council members. On August 8, 2016, the City Clerk's Office received a request for an animal variance from Mr. and Mrs. Howard. The variance is requesting a fourth dog to be licensed at their single-family residence. The city's Port Orchard Municipal Code requires dogs and cats to be licensed when they are over the age of 6 months. Port Orchard Municipal Code 7.12090 subsection 2 allows for the pet owner to seek a variance of additional cats or dogs upon a request submitted to the City Council and a public hearing is held. In addition, notice is given to all adjacent property owners of the public hearing. On August 23, 2016, staff was directed to set the public hearing for tonight, and all adjacent property owners have been notified of tonight's public hearing. I will also mention that we did receive 2 written comments regarding the public hearing, and those have been forwarded to the council. With that, staff recommends that the Mayor Pro Tem open the public hearing for council consideration.
And with that, we will open the public hearing for the variance for the animal variance. No one signed up on the sign-up sheet to speak at the public hearing, but we would open it up to the audience.
Good evening, council members. My name is Deborah Howard, and this is my husband, Jim Howard, and we reside at 907 Grant Avenue here in Port Orchard. We've lived in our neighborhood for the past 25 years. We've always loved living here and have put a lot of care and hard work into our property and home. And over the years, I've put flower gardens in and fruit trees, and we've added an addition to our home 6 years ago. And I think we've really improved the value of our neighborhood. Our home and gardens were even featured twice in a local home and garden magazine. Over the 25 years, we've owned 3 or 4 dogs, and until over the years, Jim and I felt that we've been good neighbors up on Grand Avenue, and we've been responsible pet owners. We clean up after our dogs and properly dispose their waste. Well, maybe I shouldn't say we, maybe I should say he, my husband, Jim. This year, there's been such animosity towards us from one of our neighbors regarding owning 4 dogs. We've made the decision for the safety and the well-being of our animals to move out of our neighborhood. We have purchased property in Kitsap County, and I have the documentation proving that we have, and we will be building a new home. We are now waiting for the county to approve our building permits, and it's going to take a little time, but they're in, 3 weeks in. We're here today because we're following a city process in requesting this variance to allow us to have 4 dogs until our new home is built. I've also submitted previously a letter with signatures from 6 of our adjacent neighbors who have no objection to this request and having our 4 dogs. Our dogs are our family. They have been over the years. We have no family that live here, and so we have nowhere to put one of our dogs. If it was to consider boarding, it would be an undue hardship because of the cost, because it's still, we don't know when the permitting will go through and then the time it'll take to build the home for us. So we're here today is to asking this, to consider this in your decision and grant our request for the 4 dogs until we can move into the county. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak on this public hearing? Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Gretchen Johnson. I live at 204 Smith Street, and I've lived there for almost 8 years. Will be 8 years in December, and I have found Jim and Deb Howard to be very kind and responsible neighbors. We ride together Our dogs play together. I have 3 dogs myself. I just want to say their dogs are not a nuisance. They have been portrayed as the nuisance of the neighborhood, and this is not accurate. I work from home. I've worked from home since June. I hear everything that goes on in the neighborhood because I live right on the corner of Smith and Grant. Everyone has dogs in the neighborhood, and they go off all day long. But it never lasts for more than 10 or 15 seconds. I mean, they go off, it's a little round symphony of dogs barking, and then they're done. However, the Howard's dogs are inside all day because they're at work. The only time they're outside is when the Howards come home. So they're not even part of this barking that goes on all day. They're in at night. And since Jim and Deb have been working on their property so much, they're even gone in the evenings a lot, and they're gone on the weekends. So their dogs are inside in the garage, and they'll call and say, hey, can you let the dogs out to go piddle? And, and then I put them back in. They are not the nuisance they are portrayed to be. And I just want to let everyone know that, and I hope you grant this variance. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak?
Hello, my name is Sean Sublett. This is my daughter Sawyer Sublett. We live at 926 Grant Avenue, directly across the street from Jim and Deb. We've lived there, well, obviously not her because she's only 2, but me and my wife have lived in the house since 2009. And Jim and Deb and their dogs have always been great. They, just like Gretchen said, they're not the nuisance they are portrayed to be. I get up and go to work at 3:30 in the morning, and there's no sound. I have corgis who have giant radar ears, and Jim and Deb's dogs don't wake them up. They get let outside just like any other of our animals, and they do their hot laps and they go back in. I have to keep my dogs because of the same reasoning Jim and Deb are going through. I have also received a letter about my dogs because they're herding dogs according to the people, and what they do is bark. So I have to keep my dogs locked up until me and my wife get home as well. So everybody in our neighborhood supports them, and they've been a staple in our neighborhood, so we back them up as well.
Thank you. Again, is there anyone else who would like to speak for the public hearing? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing and move on to agenda item 7A, which is approval of an animal variance for 907 Grant. And Brandy, this.
So as stated earlier, on August 8, 2016, the clerk's office received a request for an animal variance from Mr. and Mrs. Howard. The variance is requesting a 4th dog to be licensed at their single-family residence. The city's Port Orchard Municipal Code requires that dogs and cats be licensed when they're over the age of 6 months. Port Orchard Municipal Code 7.12090 subsection 1 states that a number of dogs and cats at a single-family dwelling unit shall be restricted to a total of 3 dogs and or cats. However, the code does allow for the owner of the dog or the cat to request a variance to the City Council. A public hearing was held earlier this evening, and per Port Orchard Municipal Code 7.12090 subsection 2, a variance shall be granted when A, the strict enforcement of the provisions of this chapter will create an undue hardship, and B, the variance will not create a health or safety hazard. Staff recommends the approval of the variance to Mr. and Mrs. Howard for an additional dog if the council determines the denial of the variance would create an undue hardship and that the additional dog would not create a health and safety hazard.
Thank you. Ms. Riccarelli?
I move to authorize the city clerk to issue an approval letter and a pet license for the 4th animal, the dog in this case, to Mr. and Mrs. Howard, and for them to comply with all other regulations and licensing requirements of Port Orchard Municipal Code Title VII.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have discussion on the public hearing? Mr. Diener?
We did receive a couple letters. I think one of the letters from a neighbor asserted a health concern, but I don't think they demonstrated that adequately in their letter.
Is there any other discussion?
Well, I had a couple thoughts. One is that I believe the number 3 has always been arbitrary. I know it's been in the ordinance of the city for many years, and I would be interested in reevaluating that and seeing if 3 is why we came to 3, what it means, should it be more or not. I've noticed that it's not really the number of dogs that creates the amount of noise. You may have one single hysterical dog that is left outside chained day and night through winter and summer that creates a lot of sound, as opposed to maybe 3 or 4 very well-behaved dogs. I have one dog. I believe he's well-behaved, but he is in the house while I am not, so I don't know what he does. I would say that I'm actually very saddened to hear that someone would have to leave the city because of an issue like this, but I wish you luck in your new home.
When I would just further that comment, Councilmember Chang, we could probably sit here and go back and forth on whether that number should be 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 but the reality of it is this is where this variance comes into play, and that's exactly why it happens. And so be able to capture testimony and go through this process, then we can, make a sound decision based on, the evidence provided to us. And so I'll absolutely be supporting this request.
The only thing I would say is that there is an ordinance for 3 dogs, and the only dicey part about this is that a 4th dog was brought into the situation. That's a violation of the rules. So that makes it a little bit dicier. That's all my only comment on that.
Is there any more discussion? Seeing none, we have a motion before us and a second to authorize the city clerk to issue an approval letter and a pet license for the 4th animal to Mr. and Mrs. Howard, and for them to comply with all other regulations and licensing requirements of Port Orchard Municipal Code Title VII. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed say no.
I'm going to abstain from this one.
You can't.
Then I will say aye.
Thank you. That motion carries. Congratulations. We will move on to business item 7B, which is the ordinance 030-16, adopting a new chapter, 12.30 of complete streets. And I believe that would be Carrie this evening.
Yes, thank you. Good evening, council members. This item is being proposed so that the city has code in place that will allow the city to take advantage of the state's Complete Streets grant program, which was established in 2011. The purpose of the grant program is to encourage local governments to adopt urban arterial retrofit street ordinances that are designed to provide safe access to all users, bicyclists, pedestrians, motorists, and public transportation users. The eligibility for the grant funds, the state grant funds that are administered by the Complete Streets grant program, require that we adopt code regulations in our municipal code to plan for the need of all users, which are also in line with sound engineering principles. So the proposal here does not actually establish a process, or it doesn't establish what the city would be using such funds for. It simply puts into place the mechanism that qualifies us to apply for those grant funds. And I'm happy to go into any further detail as required.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor Pro Tem, I move the City Council approve ordinance 3016.
And I second that.
Thank you. Is there discussion? Yes, Fred.
I have a question for the city attorney, which is on page 3. It lists several partners, among them state transportation funding agencies. Among them is DOT, which is the agency that I work for. I would not benefit from this material, but I don't know if the mention of DOT in this means that I should offer to recuse myself or just bring it up.
No, the presence of that does not require that you recuse yourself. You certainly may if you feel compelled to.
I don't feel that I have a conflict. If anyone else does, though, I would be happy to step out. No? Okay.
I have a question. And my question is, and I don't know if it's directed to Carrie or Mark, but because we adopt this Complete Streets chapter, that does not mean that every street in the city is going to become a complete street.
It does not. We would be applying for specific grant funding intended for certain types of projects, and we would specify in our grant application what we intend to use it for, where, how, who we're partnering with, and so forth. It does not have anything to do with declaring any portion of the city a complete street opportunity.
Is there any other discussion among the council? Mr. Diener?
Just that I feel this is important for us to be grant eligible and to be competitive for a bucket of funds for transportation development within the city, and it is sorely needed.
Thank you. Ms. Lucarelli?
I also was wondering about this and why we needed to go through this process, but I do understand and do want to have the mechanism in place to apply for these grants. And I felt a whole lot better when I read that the Public Works Director really has a lot of ability to speak into the situation, and that there's a mechanism where we can even determine if something is excessively disproportionate to the cost of the project, to not have to comply. So it seems to me that there's a lot in place for us to determine whether it's appropriate or not to make use of it, but I sure wouldn't want to miss out on grants, knowing how hard it is to come by transportation funds. So I'm going to be voting in favor of this.
Just an add on to that, I think it's important to pay attention to the definition section of this, and really where it points out kind of the flexibility within that the definition of complete streets allows for a lot of flexibility, as well as street projecting users. And so I think that's an important section to understand kind of the box that this is being portrayed within.
Thank you. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, we will be voting on the motion before us, which is for the City Council to approve Ordinance 030-16. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, say no. Thank you.
Thank you.
And we will go on now to business item C, which is the adoption of a resolution fixing a date for a public hearing for a petition to vacate a portion of city right-of-way. And Ms. Reinerson.
Yes, good evening, council members, Mayor Pro Tem. So applicant Mr. David Preston submitted a request to vacate a portion of city right-of-way, commonly known as Smith Street. The city engineer has reviewed the proposed application and has indicated the following: that the city does not have a foreseeable or possible use of the property. The removal of the public access does not adversely affect access to other properties. The vacation of the property does not adversely affect utilities such as water, sewer, and storm, electric, and others. However, there is an existing power line that a separate easement from PSE may be needed. The Community Development Director stated the following: that enlarging of the property area does not create potential or actual land uses that are inconsistent with the city's growth plans and goals. RCW 2579.010 and Port Orchard Municipal Code 12.080.010 subsection 1 states that the City Council shall adopt a resolution setting the date and time of a public hearing to vacate the city's right-of-way upon more than 2/3 of the property abutting upon the part of street or alley sought to be vacated. Staff is seeking direction from the council as to when they want to hold the public hearing to vacate the proposed city right-of-way, as the petitioner has met the requirements. Upon the adoption of this resolution, staff will seek an appraisal for fair market value, make sure the proper posting requirements are met as outlined in Port Orchard Municipal Code 23.20.030, and notices of date and time of the hearing will be provided to adjacent property owners. And then I will point out the map that where it is at is here's Port Orchard Boulevard, here's Hull, this is the active street Smith here, or the active street Smith Street, and then this is the dead end that is being requested to be vacated. And the highlighted portion in green, if you guys can see it, is the petitioner. staff recommends the council to adopt a resolution setting the date and time of the hearing to be vacated, the city's right-of-way, commonly known as Smith Street, to be held on Tuesday, October 11th, 2016, at a regular council meeting, and to post proper notices of the hearing. And then I did fail to mention in the staff report that once it's presented to the council has to set the public hearing no less than 20 days, but no more than 60 days to have that public hearing held by the public. So the October 11th is the soonest you can hold a public hearing.
Okay, thank you.
I move to adopt a resolution setting the public hearing for October 11th, 2016 to occur during the regular council meeting on a petition to vacate a portion of the city's right-of-way commonly known as Smith Street.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Fred?
Yes. Brandy, I'm wondering if you could offer additional information. I see the highlighted property 01200, and I see the requested area. So if I understand it, the applicant represents that highlighted property of 01200. What about the other 3 adjacent properties to the requested area? Have they weighed in and decided that they do not want an interest in the requested area?
So in order to have the application even be brought before you, 2/3 of the property owners have to sign the petition. So what we have right now is obviously the applicant here. We have this owner's permission, which happens to be the same owner as the applicant or petitioner. We have this petitioner who has signed, and this one right here is the 4th adjacent one, and they have not signed the petition.
Okay, so we've heard from 3 of the 4.
Correct.
If they wanted to split it, would we still give the entire parcel to the person with the majority support?
I don't understand what you mean by split it. So the way that the code works is if you grant the vacation, then it will be split 50-50.
Okay.
And the lines, this will go here, this will go there, that will go there, and that will go there. It'll be
So-
split 4 ways.
I misunderstood, and I thought that they were acquiring all of the requested area. They were only requiring a portion of the requested area, as you've just marked it.
They are requesting to be vacated the entire strip, which is 250 feet. And that's because because he's the same owner, so he can request that whole strip.
Mm-hmm.
And
So if I may weigh in, the adjacent property owners, this is an easement that's given to the city. So the city has property rights across that area, but the underlying property belonged to the adjacent property owners. So really, it would just be giving them back the land that is technically theirs. So they each own up to the middle of that street.
Okay. Thank you.
So it is not a city street.
It is currently designated as a city street, but once it's vacated, it will be taken off the city street rolls.
Right,
it's platted as a city street, but it's not used as a city street. And here is, maybe this is a better picture of it. So this, along this road here, that is Hull Avenue here. And then this is Smith Street. This is what they're requesting to be vacated.
Yes, technically it's the unopened right-of-way of Smith Street.
Right.
So as the city attorney was saying, each adjacent property owner has a fee simple underlying ownership with the access easement through the right-of-way provided. But as it's unopened, and with the proximity to Port Orchard Boulevard, there's really no need for this right-of-way to be opened.
Thank you. Ms. Lucarelli?
I do have a question. I saw that it would be determined how much that property would be evaluated at, but you have one property owner that really didn't have an interest. How do you work that? Do they have to pay a fee for that too?
The way that I understand the code is that the petitioner is the person that will be paying the fee. So the petitioner pays the $100 application fee, the petitioner pays the cost for the appraisal of the property, and the petitioner will be required to pay 50% of that appraisal cost to the city. The rest of the 3 parcels get additional land added to their legal description, but on the flip side, they will also incur additional taxes based on that. I believe that's the reason why we have to have at least 2/3 of the property sign the petition before it's even brought before you. And the other one is we're also required to notify them certified return receipt mail, posting, all those type of things to give them the opportunity to come in here and voice their support or objection.
So the motion, oh, go ahead.
I have a question. Will any of the property owners be required to pay the assessed value of that land, or is it just going to be returned because it was an easement granted over their property in the
Just
first
the
place?
petitioner will be paying 50% of the market value of that property to the city.
The others will receive the 50% at no cost?
Of the land, correct,
Okay.
up front, but they will be added to their land value and probably taxed in the future for that. Once the council, should the council vacate the property, part of the process is once the ordinance is signed and recorded with the county, that is a county assessor's responsibility at that point is to modify the legal descriptions to include that it's been vacated.
So the motion, Mr. Diener?
So I understand that there can be circumstances whereby, if you want to throw up the map, that say the northern properties originally dedicated that entire right-of-way, that if it were vacated, it would go back entirely to the northern property owners. Did we check to make sure that it was dedicated equally by all sides, or did we check?
The way I understand it, all of the road dedications are taken equally from the abutting property owners, but I guess maybe Mark can weigh in on that.
Well, I know that we checked this area against the has it already been vacated rule that said if it had how it was platted originally.
The non-user statute.
Right, the non-user statute. So that didn't fall into that category. Therefore, given that this is, if you look at the legal description, it's the plat of what, Smith Edition or replat of Central. So that's telling me just from that description that it was part of a large platted area in what year was that, like?
1890 is when it was platted.
So I would say it'd be highly unlikely that there was some, when you look at how the roads lined up.
Okay. Thank you.
And again, the issue before us tonight is, do we want to hold the public hearing on October 10th? And then I would imagine a lot of our questions would be answered during the public hearing. Mr. McCarty?
That's exactly what I was going to say. It's just the motion before us is to move it to a public hearing where we can have additional findings. And while these are great questions, I think our finding stage will come subsequent to this particular motion that's being considered at this time.
It's October 11th.
October 11th.
Yes.
Okay. So having a motion and a second, what we will be voting on is to adopt a resolution setting the public hearing for October 11th, 2016 to occur during the regular council meeting on a petition to vacate a portion of city right-of-way commonly known as Smith Street. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
If there's anyone opposed, say no. Thank you. And we will move on to business item D, which is a resolution approving a contract with the law office of Thomas M. Poors. And Mr. Dorsey, this is your item.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, council members. As needed for the continued development of the city's wells, number 1112 and 10/13, and as previously budgeted in 2016 and 2017, the city's Public Works Department now requires water rights legal expertise. On August 1st, 2016, the Public Works Department issued a request for qualifications to 3 water rights legal firms. By the August 3rd, 2016 deadline, the city received statement of qualifications from 2 firms. Upon review and scoring of each of the firms' statement of qualifications, the city's Public Works Department selected the law office of Thomas M. Poors as being the most qualified professional services firm. On September 2nd, 2016, the city verified that the law office of Thomas Pores was listed on the current MRSC professional services roster, commenced to define the scope and budget. On September 13th, 2016, the city received a proposal from the law office of Thomas M. Pores for the required 2016 activities, which we've established as just tasks 1 through 4 only, in the amount of $50,000, and the required 2017 activities task in the amount of $70,000 plus a management reserve contingent. Staff recommends that the City Council adopt Resolution 068-16, thereby approving Contract 07516 with the Law Office of Thomas M. Pores in the amount not to exceed $50,000 for the 2016 activities, tasks 1 through 4 only, and documenting professional services procurement procedures pursuant to RCW 3980. And I would like to point out that we did budget $105,000 for this activity in 2016 and $105,000 for this activity in 2017.
Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem,
Yes.
I move to adopt resolution number 08-16, thereby approving contract number C075-16 with the law offices of Thomas M. Pores in the amount not to exceed $50,000 for the 2016 activities tasked 1 through 4 only, and documenting the professional services procurement procedures pursuant, that's a great alliteration mark, to RCW 3980.
Second.
Thank you. There is a motion and a second. Is there discussion?
I just have one comment on the fiscal impact. I just would caution all of us when we start saying words like will be budgeted in the 2017 budget. I think it probably will be proposed, and through the budget cycle it may or may not be approved. Just to point that out, that we've not gotten to that point of discussion, and I think it's probably anticipated that will be requested within a budget, but that we have not approved any budgets for 2017.
Is there any further discussion? Councilman Diener, I was quite sure you would have
I do
something.
not have a question.
Seeing no further discussion, we will be voting on the motion to adopt resolution number 068-16, thereby approving contract number C075-16 with the law office of Thomas M. Pores in an amount not to exceed $50,000 for the 2016 activities, tasks 1 through 4 only, and documenting the professional services procurement procedures pursuant to RCW 3980. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, please say no. Thank you. And I believe that is all of the business items on this evening's agenda. So we will move on to the reports of council members. And we will start with the Finance Committee, Mr. Kachardi.
So we had a finance report at our last meeting, and I don't have my calendar on
I
me.
think
It's
it's
right
the
here.
27th. I think it's.
It is,
just-
yeah, September 27th, right here, City Hall, 7:30 a.m.
Okay. And as Chair of the Economic Development Committee, we did meet yesterday. And I will give a summary of what we talked about. Our first agenda item was a special events ordinance, and City Clerk Reinerson has been working on this for some time, and she presented an updated draft for the special events ordinance in an application form. There was some discussion and some alterations to be added to it, to the final draft, and that will be coming back to our committee, I believe, in October, and then coming to the work study session, but we're just about there. Our next item was our trademark update, and the committee had been asking about a trademark for our wayfinding logo. And Clerk Reinerson provided information to the committee about the process of trademarking the city's wayfinding logo. And the committee discussed requirements for use of the logo, fees, and an application process. Clerk Reinerson will bring the final draft back to the council's work study on October 18th. So we're right there on that. The next thing we talked about was the Foot Ferry ridership numbers. The only numbers available to us at this point was through the 4th of July weekend. So at this point, they're not particularly meaningful. So we will be getting those numbers within the next couple of weeks, and they will come back to Economic Development for review, then to full council for review. And we discussed scheduling a meeting with our partners in that activity and do a debrief or a seasonal wrap-up when we have the final numbers. We then had a guest speaker, Patty Graff Hope, the executive director of Visit Kitsap Peninsula, came, and she gave us a presentation to the committee, and then we had members of businesses in the tourism community, and she talked to us regarding recent trends in Kitsap Peninsula's tourism, figures for numbers of visitors, occupancy rates, and dollars spent per year, efforts to promote the area, and opportunities for future growth of the area's tourism potential. She brought a nice packet with her, and she had brought 7 for all of the council members, but we dispersed the packets to our guests that were at the committee meeting. So I will contact Ms. Hoke and ask her if she would assemble packets for the council, and I will make sure they're distributed to everyone. We then had discussions on amendments to our DOD, the Downtown Overlay District, the View Protection Overlay District, and ADU regulations. Director Bond gave an overview of proposed changes to the regulations, and we went through them item by item. And the amendment will have a public hearing before the Planning Commission, I believe tomorrow night on September 14th, and then we'll go to the council's June 20th work study. We also had a discussion on amendments to the home model home regulations. Nick Bond presented a proposed amendments to the city model home regulations, which would allow model homes within older preliminary plats and plats that are approved in the county and later annexed into the city to be able to establish their model homes he was reducing the restrictions that we have on there now. Right now, they can't build their model homes until all of the infrastructure is in and all of the roads is in, and it's and they need to be able to do some of these things simultaneously and not wait for one. Anyway, Nick will be, there will be a public hearing on that also tomorrow evening at the Planning Commission, and then it will come to full council. So with that, that was the end of our meeting. So we will now go to utilities. Ms. Lucarelli.
Yes. Our next meeting will be September 19th at 9:30 a.m. Sewer Advisory, I might as well just keep going down the list here. That meeting is October 16th, and that is at 6:30 p.m. That will be at the West Sound Utility District on Lund Avenue.
Cindy, that's a Sunday night?
October 16th.
October 16th. Is that?
That's wrong.
Oh, look at
That's
that.
probably a bad day.
That is not correct. It is 20th. Okay. Misprint on here. Thank you for pointing that out. October 20th.
Do you have plans?
Why not, right?
I'm reading my council packet that evening.
Do you want to go on to Festival of Chimes and Lights?
Festival of Chimes and Lights is actually going to be Tuesday, September 20th at 5:30, because Clerk Reinerson will not be there on that Monday. We've switched it to Tuesday, and it's going to be 5:30 here, and it shouldn't be a real long meeting, so just wanted to let you know on that. And since we're reporting on some various committees, I just wanted to say a word. We had August 30th an ad hoc committee meet regarding the homeless. There were many professionals there, and there was a great deal of discussion about what was needed in Port Orchard specifically and generally in the whole area, the whole region. regarding the homeless and the increase in homelessness in this region. I would say the general consensus was that the committee was really looking to make sure that there were locations designated for the severe weather this coming winter, and also that there would be something looked into for possible shower service for the homeless. The rest of it is pretty much off in the future. The discussion of future shelter locations were discussed. And I think I would say the leaning of the committee is that the consideration for the location of the shelter would be actually closer to services for the homeless, where near a grocery store, near drugstores, that kind of thing. I know there was some discussion about downtown location, and for the most part, that didn't seem to be going over all that well. So, but that's a discussion for the future. Lots and lots of questions. And, of course, we talked about not really moving forward until we had consensus with other cities, because that in itself is a problem for a little city our size. And that pretty much sums it up. I don't know of any future date. Has anything been set? Okay, so we also talked actually about partnering with churches. Looking to churches for support made a lot of sense to us, that maybe they would have some facilities, take some turns. It's been done on other regions, other states, and we were going to look into that possibility of having some partners.
Thank you. I'm going to go back to economic development in that our next meeting would be scheduled for October 10th, which is the second Monday in October. That happens to be the Columbus Day holiday. I understand the city does not observe that holiday, so I did not know if the other Economic Development Committee members, if that was a burden for you to have it on that particular Monday.
That is a holy holiday for me, and it should be for Sean as well. I am jesting.
I was going to ask, does that mean you're attending or not attending?
I can certainly attend.
That's okay. Okay, then we won't go to an effort to change the date. Okay. Land use.
So we're scheduled to meet Wednesday, September 21st here at 7:30 a.m. We have 4 discussion items so far. I know that one of them is about modifying the courts at Vansea Park so that people can use them for pickleball, which is kind of neat. And then another discussion item is about amendments to the Downtown Overlay District, View Protection Overlay District, ADUs, and more. And then the last item that I'm aware of is residential design standards. So that should be an interesting meeting.
I do have a question. So will the same discussion be going on that took place in economic development and land use? Is Nick Bond?
It's Nick Bond.
Yeah, it is Nick. And what I would say is the Economic Development Committee was sensitive to that yesterday, and we wanted to let you know that meeting was recorded, so you can definitely listen to it and hear all of the discussion that had happened.
Okay, I have called a protest on this before, and this is not acceptable, in my opinion, to have something that is so closely related go to 2 committees when it basically leaves out one council member often, or an absent member. So I am not, that should go to a work study, I believe, and I have some very strong opinions about what is going on with this discussion. So I do not want that discussion to take place in land use, and I will see what I need to do as far as asking that this be taken off of your agenda, please. It is just not a good practice for the council, and I'm sure we all understand that. Okay? Brandy, what do I need to do with that?
Council committee, and I would probably the staff works under the direction of the mayor, and I would advise you to have a conversation with the mayor to see what
I have
what
actually
his position
before,
is.
so I'll bring this up again. Thank you.
And I thought we had talked about scheduling this issue for a work study as well. I don't know if that...
It shouldn't go to 2 committees before a work study then.
No, I thought we had talked about scheduling this very issue of going to different committees at work study.
Right.
We haven't had that work study discussion yet.
Okay.
Right.
Slated for October, just
Okay.
And I will go on to outside committee reports.
Lodging tax.
Oh, lodging tax. I'm sorry, Fred, right to lodging tax.
The poor overlooked lodging tax advisory committee actually met last Tuesday or Wednesday, the 7th of September. And 5 of the 6 committee members were there. We basically looked at the JLARC figures, which showed the reported tourism, both actuals and the projected. And we thought that the figures for Port Orchard were heavily inflated. It looked like they were saying, and this is no one's fault except the way it was reported, that we had 2 million visitors, while Pierce County had only like 500,000. So there were some discrepancies. We could probably say, though, that the spirit of the report was correct. We had a lot of people, and we probably had almost as many as they projected, but the figures and the way they compared were quite bizarre. So we looked at that. We also looked at the contracts and the applications, which I believe went out and are due back on Monday, October 3rd or 4th. 3rd. And the next step for the committee will be offering interviews to the number of applicants, and we don't know how many that is. So we've tentatively set aside October 12th, 13th, 14th, and the 17th. That is also subject to change because an issue came up today where one of the committee members may not be able to attend all those meetings, so we may try to adjust them to accommodate the schedule. And that was the report from the lodging tax. I would only add on to Cindy's report from the homeless committee that the next meeting is tentatively going to be October 18th. It's scheduled to be the 3rd Tuesday of the month, and it's going to be before the council work study. The time is to be determined. It will either start at 4 p.m. or 5 p.m. I also met just with the mayor's permission. I'm very grateful that he spearheaded this committee. I met yesterday actually with the First Lutheran Church on Mitchell just to gauge their interest in severe winter shelter. And they invited other people from Kitsap Rescue Mission. And what I found was interesting is that there are people who are very familiar with what you need to do to set up a severe winter shelter. Not to go on too great detail, but they said they believe that the volunteers are almost more important to set up than your location. So the location is to be determined. I'm going to actually go meet with members of the Methodist Church tomorrow for about 3 minutes. I hear they don't like meetings. And just gauge their interest either in the venue or in terms of volunteers. So we'll see how that progresses. But as Cindy said, there were actually a short-term goal, which was either the severe winter shelter or showers, and the longer-term goal is permanent supportive housing, not those words. And that, of course, is just in the distance. It'll be quite a while before we get there, but we're hoping to have a severe winter shelter in Port Orchard, the South End, for this winter.
Good.
So that's our short-term goal.
Thank you. And again, I will go on with first the outside committee reports, and the first one I will do is the Puget Sound Regional Coordinating Council. We had a meeting last Thursday. Notable action we took was we confirmed that the ST3 rapid transit issue in King County has met all of its appropriate requirements to be on the ballot this year. That's something that it's been scheduled to be on the ballot, but PSRC had to review certain elements to make sure that they were in conformity, and we did that. The other thing that was more important to us at the City of Port Orchard, as PSRC, the Transportation Policy Board gave the recommendation to the executive committee to allow us to move $300,000 from our right-of-way funding to PE, which is what we need to keep Tremont moving on. So we were grateful for that. It was done on an exception basis, and we have much appreciation for the work that Mark's staff did and that the PSRC staff did to have that favorable outcome for us. At the KRCC meeting, we just did some routine things. But what I do want to do is make sure the entire council know you're invited to the KRCC legislative reception, which will be November 10th. It's a Thursday. It's the Thursday after the election. I believe it's from 6 to 9 at the Clearwater Casino. We have, of our 9 legislative delegations for the Kitsap Peninsula, we have 8 of them with approval to come. A couple of the yeses were tentative, and we also anticipate that Representative Derek Kilmer will be there. So we are looking forward to that and hope you can all put it on your calendar. Are there any other outside committee reports? Cindy, did you go to Akita? Do you have a Akita report?
Not yet.
Okay.
Coming up, yeah.
Okay. Scott, do you have anything on growth management, or is that?
No, I have not been called up as an alternate on that board yet.
Okay. And with that, we would go to the mayor's report, but the mayor pro tem does not have a report, so we will go to the report of the department heads. Mr. Dorsey.
Yeah, just some quick updates. So the DeKalb Pier is 99% done. I think we're looking at a ribbon cutting October 5th was one date.
It has been officially set for September 30th at 10 a.m. It was changed because some key legislative people were not able to attend that day, so we have pushed it to September 30th.
At what
10
time?
a.m. 10 a.m.
I better look at my calendar.
And I believe staff has sent notices to the council members, and we will make sure we send it to staff as well.
And then as far as like public works priorities right now, obviously as Mayor pro tempore Ashby mentioned, Tremont, where all hands are on deck getting that ready for an anticipated May 2017 award. And then the other projects that we're focusing on right now are the easement acquisitions and ad-ready documents for segment 3 of the Bay Street pedestrian pathway, which is from the Marley apartment to the bridge. That's a priority project right now. And then I think in general, just our Well 1013 project and the Well 12 project are, with the water rights that we approved tonight, are priorities.
Thank you.
I
Ms.
have
Cates.
nothing to add this evening.
City Clerk Reinerson?
Yeah, I have a couple things. So as Councilmember Chang had alluded to, the application for lodging tax has been placed on the city's website. Past recipients have been emailed and notified, and it will be placed in this Friday's and next Friday's official newspaper of the Port Orchard Independent. So we are encouraging and welcoming applications that will market Port Orchard and increase our tourism. How's that? And then there's a handful of projects that either certain committees or the mayor has tasked my office with to submit some city applications. So I will work with that and make sure it's submitted on time with the deadline of October 3rd. And then the other item is that we have launched our test website. We have notified our city's agenda distribution list. We have placed it on the city's website. I think we have hopefully notified all council members that it's up and running. We have also launched a section which is kind of hard to see, but it's down at the bottom to, when you go to our current website, down at the bottom there's a click that says test it. So once you click on that, it will bring up the new site. And so we just want to mention that, not every single document that is currently on the website has been placed on the test website. It's cumbersome, and we just want to make sure that the content is what the public and the council is looking for. And then another thing that we have discovered during this process is that some photos that we take of the ribbon cutting and the council photos are not set in high resolution. So when we go put them on the website, it is distorted, or we can't modify them. And when we do modify them, they become quite blurry. So because of the feedback button on the city's website, we did get a couple positive feedbacks and some suggestions, and one of them was to change the council photo. It was focusing on the bottom half and not the top half. So we did adjust that. A little blurry, but you see the top half and not the bottom half. And so my recommendation and solution for that is we have sought some technical support of our city-issued camera, and we have the ability with the click of a button to take high resolution photos. And I'm hoping that the weather will hold out for the next couple council meetings and that we can either slip down right before the meeting starts. I'll make sure it's published on the agenda maybe the next couple meetings, so that way if weather doesn't permit, then we can the next meeting to get some good high resolution photos to show off on our website. The other photos will not go to waste. We will make sure we use them for other marketing materials, whatever that may be. So other than that, I believe that's all I have.
Brandy, do you know if the lodging tax applications and the test website announcements can be pushed to the city's Facebook page?
Yes, and I believe the lodging tax should be on the city's website, or excuse me, on the city's Facebook. If not, it will be shortly. And then same with the website.
Great.
It was probably just a lack of time today.
Okay, thank you.
With that, we will move to our second citizen comment period. Is there anyone who would wish to speak? Yes. Either one of you step to the microphone.
Hi, my name is Randy Jones. I live at 1777 Bay Street, Port Orchard. Also own Venture Charters, and I have a vacation rental at the house. My house is one of the homes on the pathway that was requested to be purchased. City Council had a resolution to avoid forcing us into eminent domain and to work with our existing properties. And I went in and talked to Olson's, and they said they haven't found any options, or haven't been approached to how the pathway would affect my house. So I would like to hear from them and see what the next plans are. I've been sitting with this for 3-4 years now and lost a lot of sleep over it. We've had some suggestions on how to work around my home if we did that. Also, I was approached earlier this year by your appraisal people, and they came in again because the appraisal was several years old now, and it's a different market. And I'd like to know what they came up with. It's a difficult property to appraise, almost realistically impossible to appraise because of its uniqueness. Anyway, I would like to see what they have come up with, and I would like to move forward. If there is an offer on the table, I've hired Seward and Bellum to represent me. After the first, they step in after the first appraisal is after the first offer is made. So I would like to move on forward on this. This has really been hard on us, as some of you know, and very emotional and tough situation. But we do want to know what's going on. I understand Pasau's property has been purchased. And I'd like to know if there's any other properties that have been purchased. And I think I speak for the rest of us. It's time for the rest of us to come out of hiding too and back up here. I guess that's it. If anyone can get back to me as to what the next step is, I'd really appreciate it. Thank you for your time.
Yes, if you would leave your contact information with the city clerk.
Okay. Yeah, I bet you do.
Thank you. Ms. Harmon.
It's moved around all the time.
I have 2 issues that I want to talk about. First of all, Ms. Ashley, you mentioned that there's a public hearing tomorrow night, and I've looked in several papers, and I can't find where it has been listed that there's a public hearing by the Planning Commission. So I'd like to know where that was, so that now that you're saying there's a second one, and I'm a little upset because the DOD affects everybody on the hillside, and you're having a hearing on it, and none of us know about it. And just hearing it, through a grapevine is not a way that the city should be informing the people, because it does affect everybody on this hillside. And we should know about it and be able to come in and listen about what's happening. And another thing is, I was told tonight that it was accident that the two committees heard the same issue and then put it on the consent agenda the time before. But this sounds like it's going to be a problem if this keeps happening. If it goes through to committees, then you already know that you have the votes to put it on the consent agenda, and we don't hear a thing about what's happening. And that almost sounds illegal to me. And I think something should be discussed a lot about that, because we should have the right to have input on everything here. And when you do it the way you're suggesting, we are out of step on that. And somebody needs to talk about it. I am feeling, coming to meetings, that I know less and less. And it's because so much is being done behind closed doors. Thank you.
Yes.
Alyssa Whittleton. Good evening. I just wanted to reinforce the concern that was brought up about, a similar issue going to two different committees, and I too endorse more transparency there. And I appreciate the fact that Councilman Lucarelli brought that up. Whether it's an oversight or whatever, I could see that there's a real concern there that we could be concerned that we do not see the whole transparency of what's going on. And for it to go the consent agenda is unthinkable before it really, we have a chance to speak our mind as well. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak? Seeing none, is there anything else for the good of the order?
Just one thing. You come down, we have a beautiful Port Orchard Boulevard. It's a wonderful way to come in and view our city. You get to go through great, magnificent trees. You go a mile, and then you're rewarded with the view of Sinclair Inlet and Port Orchard. And one of the brand new great things we see is that DeKalb Pier. So this is a shout out to Mark Dorsey and his crew. Another first class project. Thank you.
Ribbon cutting at the end of the month.
Be there.
September 30th.
Is there anything else for the good of the order? Seeing none, we stand